Hi, welcome. I'm glad you could make it today. Just settle in, get comfortable. We can take as much time as you need. There's no rush here. This space is just for you, for us to talk about whatever's on your mind, whatever you feel ready to share. Now, I know we're going to be discussing some of your childhood memories today, and some of those might be a bit challenging to revisit. But before we get into that, I want you to take a few deep breaths with me. In through your nose, and out through your mouth. Let's do it together again, nice and slow. In and out. So, how are you feeling right now? It's okay if you're feeling a little tense or uncertain. This isn't an easy conversation to have, but I want you to know that you're safe here. You don't have to worry about judgment or saying the right thing. So, I'd like to start by asking, when you think about your childhood, what comes to mind first? It doesn't have to be anything specific. Just whatever pops up, whatever feels natural. I can hear the weight in your words, and it sounds like your childhood holds a mix of emotions, some good, some painful. That's completely normal. Our early experiences shape us in ways we sometimes don't even realize until much later. But today, we have the chance to take a closer, gentler look at those memories and what they mean for you now. If it's alright with you, let's start by thinking about how you viewed yourself as a child. Picture yourself at a significant age, maybe 5, 7, or even 10 years old. Whatever time period feels relevant. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable and really picture that younger version of you. What do they look like? How do they carry themselves? Are they confident, curious, or perhaps a bit withdrawn, anxious? Thank you for that. Now, I'd like you to think about how you felt during those times. Did you feel safe? Did you feel understood? Or were there times when it felt like you were carrying more than a child should have to carry? It sounds like there's a lot wrapped up in those memories. Emotions that may still linger with you today. Childhood is such a formative time, and when our needs aren't fully met, whether emotionally or otherwise, it can leave a lasting impact. It's okay to acknowledge that some of those experiences were hard, maybe even painful. You don't have to minimize it. This is a safe space to be completely honest with yourself. Let's try something together. Imagine yourself sitting down next to that younger version of you, the one you just pictured. You're there with them now, not as the adult trying to fix anything, but simply to offer comfort and support. What does that younger version of you need to hear in this moment? What would have brought them peace or reassurance back then? Wow, that's so powerful. Offering kindness and compassion to your younger self can be incredibly healing. Often, what we needed most as children was simply to feel seen, to be heard, to know that it was okay to feel whatever we were feeling. And right now, you have the power to give that to yourself, even though it wasn't available to you back then. You're doing really well, by the way. I know this can be difficult to sit with, but you're allowing yourself to feel and reflect in a way that's really important for your healing. Let's shift focus a little. Are there specific memories from your childhood that stand out to you? Events, interactions, or relationships that felt particularly significant, either in subtle or more obvious ways? Whatever comes to mind, I'd like to hear it, if you're comfortable. Thank you for sharing that. I can tell that memory holds a lot for you. It sounds like there was something about that experience that left a deep mark, perhaps more than you realized at the time. Have you noticed any patterns from that memory, or others like it, that seem to show up in your life today? Sometimes the ways we cope as children follow us into adulthood, even if they're no longer helpful. That's very insightful of you. The ways we learn to protect ourselves or make sense of our world as children often become deeply ingrained, almost like second nature. But here's the important part. You're not that child anymore. You're an adult now, with more tools, more awareness, and more strength than you may even realize. Let's talk about some of those patterns. If you think about the way you respond to challenges, relationships, or even how you see yourself, are there any behaviors or beliefs that seem rooted in those childhood experiences? For example, do you ever find yourself feeling like you have to please others or avoid conflict at all costs, even when it's not serving you anymore? That's a great observation. When we grow up in environments where we didn't feel fully seen, or where we had to manage difficult emotions on our own, we often carry those survival strategies into adulthood. It's completely understandable. Those strategies kept you safe at one time. But as an adult, you have more choices now. You don't have to rely on those old habits anymore. I want to try a little visualization exercise with you. Think about one of those old patterns. Maybe it's people-pleasing, or feeling like you always have to be strong and hold everything together. Imagine that pattern as a physical object in front of you. How big is it? What color is it? Is it heavy, or does it feel like it could float away if you let it? Now, I want you to imagine what it would feel like to loosen your grip on that object, just a little bit. You don't have to let it go completely, but imagine setting it down just for a moment. What would it be like to live without that weight, even if only for a little while? That's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes just giving ourselves permission to let go of those old patterns, if only in our minds, can show us that we don't need them as much as we thought. You've grown beyond them, and it's okay to release what no longer serves you. Let's take a moment to breathe again. Inhale slowly and exhale. You're doing really important work here, and it's not easy. I want you to remember that healing is a journey, and it's okay to take small steps. Each step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to understanding yourself and breaking free from those old wounds. Let's talk a bit more about your relationship with your family during those early years. Family dynamics often play a huge role in how we understand ourselves and the world. Were there any particular relationships within your family, maybe with a parent or a sibling, that felt especially impactful, either in a positive or negative way? That's really helpful insight. Family relationships can be complicated, and sometimes they leave us with unresolved emotions that we carry into adulthood. It's possible to still love or care for someone while also acknowledging the ways they may have hurt you or let you down. Have you noticed any lingering effects from those relationships? Perhaps in the way you trust others or in the way you handle conflict? It's understandable. When we grow up feeling uncertain or unsafe in our closest relationships, it can leave us feeling like we need to protect ourselves, even when there's no longer any threat. I want you to know that it's okay to recognize those feelings for what they are, echoes from the past. You have more control now. You get to decide how you want to respond to the people in your life and what kind of boundaries feel healthy for you. Boundaries are something I'd love to explore with you if you're open to it. For a lot of people who grew up with chaotic or emotionally unavailable family members, boundaries were either unclear or non-existent. Do you feel like that's something you've struggled with, knowing where you end and others begin? Knowing when it's okay to say no or to protect your own energy? It makes sense that boundaries would feel difficult after what you've experienced, but you have the ability now to set them in a way that protects your well-being. You don't have to give more of yourself than you're comfortable with. And it's okay to prioritize your needs. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you don't care. It simply means you're making space for your own healing and growth. Before we end today's session, I want to offer you a tool that might help you as you continue to navigate these emotions. It's called reparenting, and it's about giving yourself the care and support that maybe you didn't receive as a child. The next time you feel triggered by something from your past, whether it's an old memory, a difficult emotion, or even a pattern you're trying to break, take a moment to pause. Imagine that your younger self is standing right there with you and ask them, what do you need in this moment? Then try to offer that to yourself, whether it's kindness, reassurance, or just permission to feel what you're feeling. It's a small but powerful way to start healing those old wounds and to remind yourself that you are capable of providing what you need. How does that sound to you? Great. I'm really glad that resonates with you. Remember, healing is a process and there's no rush. You're doing the hard work, and that's really what matters. As we wrap up, I just want to acknowledge how far you've come. Even in this session alone, you faced some difficult memories, reflected deeply on your experiences, and started to see the patterns that might still be affecting you today. And that's huge. So, try to take this day by day. You're not alone in this journey, and there's always space for you here to continue exploring, healing, and growing. Until next time, please take care of yourself.